How did a bright orange Dodge Charger become the most controversial car in TV history? The General Lee, with its iconic Confederate flag and Dixie horn, soared over countless jumps, crashed through obstacles, and became a symbol of rebellion. But what's the real story behind this car? And how did the Dukes of Hazzard end up using over 300 of these cars for their wild jumps and crashes? Stick around to find out how the General Lee became a cultural icon, survived one of the longest jumps in TV, and stirred up controversy long after the cameras stopped rolling. And please, don't forget to subscribe, as it helps us to reach more gearheads. General Lee, the classic ride driven by Bo and Luke Duke, and sometimes their cousins Coy and Vance, became legendary for its wild police chases, epic jumps, that unforgettable horn. If you've seen the series, you know the General Lee made an appearance in every episode except one. The name General Lee pays respect to Robert E. Lee, a Confederate general, and the car had a Confederate flag on its roof. The idea came from a bootlegger named Jerry Rushing, who named his car after Lee's favorite horse, Traveler. During the show, they went through a lot of Chargers. Estimates range from 255 to 325 cars. Today, only about 17 of the original General Lees still exist, and they're in various states of repair. The cars took a beating with all the jumps and stunts. To keep the car from tipping forward during those high-flying stunts, they loaded the trunk with up to 1,000 pounds of sandbags or concrete. Despite this, the landings were often harsh, leading many cars to retire right after a jump. Initially, they used Chargers from 1968 and 1969, but as the show progressed, finding more became tough. By the later seasons, they started reusing old footage and even used radio-controlled miniatures for some stunts. Now, Lee 1 had a 383 V8 engine and was originally painted light bronze metallic with a tan interior. It gained fame for an epic jump over Roscoe's police cruiser. Afterward, it had its front seats and specific grille removed and later appeared as a Richard Petty tire test car. Lee 2, also powered by a 383 V8, originally had a B5B paint job but was repainted to match Lee 1 and Lee 3's interiors. It's known for the chase scene in One-Armed Bandit. Lee 3, the star for close-ups, was a 440 Magnum engine beast, originally an F5 medium green metallic. It was later painted Corvette Flame Red and set the standard for the General Lee's look. As the originals got damaged, more were built, sometimes converting 1968 Chargers to look like 1969 models. In 2012, Lee 1 was sold to golfer Bubba Watson for $121,000. From seasons 2 to 4, the Velozat brothers handled General Lee builds. They were known for their varied orange paint jobs and interiors, often dyed brown or saddle tan. Their work not only fueled the show, but also helped restore Gene Autry's Melody Ranch, a famous Western filming location. By 1983, Warner Brothers took full control of the General Lee's production. Ken Fritz was initially in charge, but he didn't last long. Warner Brothers brought everything in-house. The car had become a massive part of the show's appeal, and WB was flooded with fan mail about the car's details. To keep up, WB's staff mechanics built the cars to exact specifications. Graphics, trim, roll bars, and push bars had to be consistent. They even changed some things, like making the push bar wider and changing the interior to a light beige with black foam padding on the roll bars. During this period, the only way to tell the difference between the 1968 conversions and the 1969 originals was by the shape of the dashboard padding. As the Warner Brothers era went on, finding 1968 and 1969 Chargers got tough. They even hired Piper Cub planes to scour for these cars. The ones used for jumps weren't scrapped if they could still be repaired. They'd patch them up and send them back out until they just couldn't run anymore. Toward the series' end, miniature radio control models were used for big jumps to save the cars. This move wasn't too popular among the directors or even Tom Wopat because the models looked less realistic. There was also a rivalry brewing with Knight Rider, so they pushed those stunts even more. By bringing production in-house, WB saved money by buying, fixing up, and using the cars without rental fees. When it came to the Dukes of Hazzard movie, the General Lee got a fresh look. At the start, it was a faded orange, had a hand-painted 01 on the doors, regular wheels, and no Confederate flag. But when Cooter repaired it after Boss Hogg's guys messed it up, he gave it a makeover. It came out bright hemi-orange, with all the iconic features. American racing wheels, octagonal 01, a black grille guard, the flag on the roof, the Dixie horn, and General Lee over the windows. The movie cars were something else. They could fly, land smoothly, and even drift, thanks to pro drifter Tanner Faust. For jump scenes, some stunt cars had their engines and transmissions removed. They were launched using a diesel catapult like those on aircraft carriers. The film used about 24 Chargers from 1968 to 1970. Unlike the TV show cars, the movie cars used aftermarket graphic kits. They had some differences, like Big Bad Orange paint instead of Corvette Flame Red, black interiors, rear roll cages, and AM/FM stereo radios with CD players. Despite these updates, they still kept that classic General Lee flavor. General Lee number 020 was the drift car, used in the scene around Lee Circle and the race against the black Shelby at the end. It was one of the few with a 4-speed setup and had an emergency brake handle near the shifter for quick rear brake locking. It's still roadworthy and is now owned by Troy Martinson in Minnesota. Now, Everett J.R. Barton from Kansas had a 1969 RTSE and a 1970 Charger modified to look like a 1969. He temporarily sold both to Warner Brothers for just $1 each, bought them back later for $1.25. They picked up these cars in Wichita and drove them to Baton Rouge. Now, the 1970 Charger had its engine taken out and got the full General Lee makeover. They even added weight to balance it for a big freeway jump seat. Before using Barton's car, another Charger tried the jump but landed badly, crashing into the guardrail. So they turned to Barton's car, labeled number 127, which was launched using a catapult system, similar to what you see on aircraft carriers. This car flew farther than any other jump in the film and actually survived. After filming, Everett got his cars back, popped a motor into the jumped one, and drove it in a few parades. He kept it for 8 years before selling it. Later, it was restored to show quality on the TV show Graveyard Cars. Now, let's talk about some homages. In Smallville's 5th season, Tom Wopat, Luke Duke from Dukes of Hazzard, played Senator Jack Jennings. He showed up driving a 1968 Dodge Charger RT that looked like an early version of the General Lee, painted blue and without the famous logo. In 2014, the General Lee appeared in an Auto Trader commercial with John Schneider and Tom Wopat, the original Duke boys. The show's theme song, Good Old Boys, played in the background, bringing back some nostalgia from fans. The car's use of the Confederate flag became controversial after the 2015 Charleston shooting. Warner Brothers stopped making General Lee toys, sparking debate. Bubba Watson, who owned Lee 1, even painted over the flag on his car. In 2020, the Volo Museum, which owned another original General Lee, refused to remove the car, stating that no one had complained about it to them. The engines in the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard TV show came in various sizes, 318, 383, and 440 cubic inches. None of the cars had that iconic 426 Hemi in the series, but in the 2005 movie, Cooter swapped in a 426 Hemi under the hood. For the TV show, most of the close-up cars, the ones used for scenes with more detail, had 383 engines. There was also a special stunt car called the Ski Car, built for driving on 2 wheels. It had a similar 318 engine because it was lighter. The stunt drivers usually preferred the 440 engines for jumps since they pack more power, so they saved the 440 powered cars for the biggest stunts. While many fans might have thought all the General Lees had manual transmissions, most of them actually used 727 TorqueFlite automatic transmissions. Now, about those doors. In the show, the General Lee's doors didn't open. The idea was that race cars have their doors welded shut, so Bo and Luke had to slide in through the windows, just like in NASCAR. This made for some funny scenes, especially when characters like Uncle Jesse or Boss Hogg tried to climb in. Interestingly, this wasn't planned initially. During the filming of the first chase scene, the passenger door handle got damaged, so Tom Wopat had to climb through the window. The director loved the look and made John Schneider, Bo, do it too. That's why only the first 2 General Lees had full roll cages. The rest just had roll bars to make window entry easier. For the exhaust system, most cars had pretty basic setups. Some had glass pack mufflers, but usually the exhaust pipe was cut right before the rear axle. The sound you hear in most episodes comes from a Thrush brand glass pack. They actually dubbed those sounds in later, borrowing sound effects from the movie Bullitt. The close-up cars had blackjack headers, dual exhausts, and those classic Thrush mufflers to give the General Lee its signature growl. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, and please make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss our next episode in the Muscle Car Vault.